changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. It's Tip Tuesday, when we talk about an easy-to-implement, life-changing tip from one of our stories. And today I have two stories to discuss with you. They're both about shopping, or rather, no shopping. Could you go a year without shopping? I'm not a big shopper at all. I probably shop less than almost any of my friends because I'm just too busy. But I still think it would be hard to go a whole year without buying anything new to wear. But here's what these ladies wrote in our latest book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Joy of Less. First, we're going to hear from Denise Barnes, whose story is called The Challenge. Denise tells us that in January 2014, her sister Carol announced she was challenging herself to stop buying any new clothes, handbags, shoes, or jewelry for a whole year. Carol explained the rules to Denise. She couldn't buy anything from a shop, even on sale, unless it was a thrift store or a secondhand shop. She was also allowed to swap things with other people. The idea was to get into recycling things, buying used clothing that already existed, instead of causing new clothing to be manufactured. The only thing she was allowed to buy new was underwear and tights, because you can't get those used anyway, nor would you want to. Carol assumed Denise could never do what she was doing. She knew that Denise loved shopping. But Denise rose to the challenge. She says it wasn't easy, but she did it. And the funny thing was that she started to receive items of clothing from her friends who didn't even know she was participating in the challenge. One friend gave her a gorgeous Laura Ashley black silk evening dress. Another friend sent her some sweaters and blouses that she had outgrown. So Denise reports that after the shock of not shopping wore off, she realized how much time she had been spending on shopping, trying on clothes, looking at window displays, always looking for that next new thing. And Denise, who lives in England, now finds that when she goes to London, instead of shopping, she gets to do fun things like visiting museums and art galleries. Now, there's a different take on not shopping for a whole year in our book, and it's in a story by Susan Leitch called Going Places with Less. So Susan and her husband had decided to sell their home, which they had lived in for 30 years, and they were going to travel across the country in an RV. And that meant that they would be moving from a house to 350 square feet, quite a dramatic downsize. So more than a year before their departure date, they stopped buying anything except food. No more clothes, no more shoes, no more gadgets for the kitchen. Susan says it felt great right from the start. It made them both feel freer. And one reason Susan and her husband were eager to do this, to reduce their possessions, was that they had just finished cleaning out her husband's mother's house after she died. And Susan saw decades of stuff piled up. And she realized something. When you look at your stuff, you should either use it or lose it. Her mother-in-law had lived in East Germany during World War II when people couldn't get anything, including food. So she had become a bit of a hoarder with boxes and boxes of extra stuff stockpiled just in case. And of course, Susan and her husband had to throw everything away. It was all moldy or out of date. So Susan and her husband stopped buying anything new, and also in preparation for their move into the RV, they slowly but steadily got rid of almost all their possessions. They did have a whole year to do it. The first stuff was easy. They got rid of things like holiday decorations. Photos were harder, but then Susan realized she could scan all of them into her computer. Furniture was actually pretty easy. They just gave it all away. They offered it to their friends and family members who took what they wanted, and then they left the rest of their furniture for the young couple who were buying their house. Susan says now she and her husband have been living in that 350 square foot RV for a year and a half, and they don't miss any of their stuff. They have exactly what they need. There is not one item in their kitchen that is not used. They have just enough clothes. And because they live so simply now, they have more time to enjoy life. Susan says they have a magical life. They have beautiful views from their new home, too. Mountains, lakes, all the wonders of the country as they drive around. Susan says, not being tied down by material things allows us to experience life differently, living uncluttered and unencumbered by material things. We have a very rich and fulfilling life, just with less stuff. So tomorrow is Wow Wednesday, and we're going to switch topics, and I'm going to share a story with you about the power of the mind and about what we don't understand about what happens when we die. I'm Amy Newmark, and I want to thank you for listening to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast today. If you have family members like mine who are new to podcasts, tell them about the podcast and then show them how to get a podcast on their phones or on their computers. And if you'd like to read more about the book I mentioned today, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Joy of Less, please go to our website, chickensoup.com.